Namaste, everybody. Welcome back to my 100th episode. Wow. 100 episodes. I just want to say thank you for all of you who are joining me on this journey. This all started when I was reading scriptures, and that was it. That was all I was doing for 9 months, and you can find those scriptures on BitChute and YouTube. If you're listening via another platform, you're not going to get them. Sorry. It's just the live show there. And you're also not getting the shorts that I show on YouTube on any other channel. But I was reading the scriptures, and I often read them far in advance, and I'll do 2 or 3 in one day. And I wanted to talk about other stuff, and I couldn't. So I decided to do a live show where I could talk about anything, everything, all sorts of stuff. And here I am, over a year later. I've had some ups and downs, and I've gone here and there, and at times I was trying to figure out what I was doing. I think I finally found my groove. And some of you have loved me, some of you have hated me. One of you has annoyed me in your comments, just to be honest. Some of you have been very supportive. But thank you for just watching and commenting and liking or subscribing or coming back. Just really thank you. Whether you hate me or you love me or somewhere in the middle. The response is kind of always welcome because it is nice to hear from people, and it's nice to cause a reaction. I don't really know how else to say that other than just, yeah, thank you for being with me on this journey. So today I was like, I got to do something special for my 100th episode. What am I going to do? And I'm thinking about this, and I had something in mind, and then I'm like, no, that's not special enough. Today, we're going to do another reaction video, because I'm really enjoying these, and I think you folks are too. Even though some of you haven't necessarily agreed with me, you're watching it. I wanted to do a reaction video today of someone very, very controversial, who I have mentioned countless times on this show, and that is Keith Raniere of the, NXIVM, whatever. I can never get the name of his group correct, so why start now? The horrible, fake, spiritual guru asshole who is in prison for life. You know who I'm talking about. The guy who abused the women, who branded them, who locked one in a room for 2 years, and who is a monster. Who touts himself as a spiritual teacher. It's interesting. So many monsters out there call themselves spiritual gurus. There's something wrong with our religion. Something wrong with all religions, because they all have this. All of them. Not just Hinduism, not just Christianity. All religions have a problem where it seems like the really nasty people get into these positions where they're really able to hurt folks. And the folks go with it. Keith didn't brand anyone. He had the women do it to themselves. Or to each other. This is horrible. You may be like me, where you never have heard of this guy, or maybe in passing you did, and you didn't pay any attention to him because he was just another whatever. And then all of a sudden, Alison Mack came up, and she's touting this teacher, Alison Mack from Smallville and Battlestar Galactica. And I watched her on both of those shows. She had a cute haircut on Smallville, and her character went nowhere. That's all I'm going to say. Actually, the show kind of, whatever. After a while, I only got to the first few seasons. Battlestar Galactica, though, is awesome. That's an amazing show. But she was killed off, if I remember correctly. But that is an amazing show all the way through. She's this cute little thing, and so all of a sudden you see her in the news. Oh, what's she touting? She's in love with this guru. And you might start paying attention then. And then all of a sudden, newsflash, FBI or CIA, whoever, invade this guru's compound, and he's got guns, and this massive trial, which if you were like me and you love religions, you were following. You were so into that. People went to jail, and all sorts of things happened. And it turned into a horror show of this beast. He is a beast. I'm sorry. Show me one other guru out there who brands people. None. Now, I can think of a guru in Canada who cut the arm off of one of his women. He was a beast. Can we think of any truly great guru who would do something like that? Let's see. Do you ever see Ramana Maharshi cutting off limbs or branding his followers? No. You ever see Vivekananda doing it? No. Did Ramakrishna go, "Worship Kali or I shoot you"? No. Gurus don't do that. They don't rape women and go, "This is good for you. My semen is good for you." Or, "Hey, little boy," or guy. They don't do that. I'm not saying they don't have sex. I'm not saying they don't have relationships. But the things that these men have done, they are animals. They're beasts. They're living on their animal instincts, and they're hurting people. And I'm sorry if there's folks out there who have found wonderful things with Keith and don't know why he's in jail right now. You are truly deluded. I call out these gurus all the time on this channel, and we're going to do it again today. So, we're going to watch some videos of Keith today. Now you might ask, why the heck am I doing that? We know this guy's an animal. I don't think there's anyone who's really going to get the courage and argue with me and, "Oh no, he's a wonderful, truly great saint that we need to honor." No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to do that. The few people who are following him still aren't going to reach out to me, given every single person thinks he's an animal. And my opinion, based on my own spiritual practice, says he's an animal. Uncaring, horrible person. Damaged lives. So why watch these videos? Why watch anything with him? Well, I'm curious. I'm a very curious person. I've always been curious. I love asking questions. And I want to know what he said that might have been enticing to these women. And actually, there were male followers, I have to be honest. And they weren't just in his compound. They were all over the place. And there's a lot of followers who probably didn't know what he was doing. I will say that there was probably a lot of people who were just following him from far away and didn't know the horror show going on. Okay, and that's forgivable. You follow someone, you think they're the shit, and come to find out they're not. That happens. But these people heard something, and they were enticed by him. So I thought I would pull up some videos today and see if we can find what he said that lured people in. Because no one goes to a cult leader and go, "Well, I know you're a cult leader, and, cult leaders are bad, and you're going to ruin my life and drain my banking account. But, hey, maybe I'll follow you." Nobody does that. They go to a cult leader. First of all, they delude themselves and say, "This isn't a cult leader. There's excuses." I know, because I was in IDDAM. I made lots of excuses going into that, knowing everything. They make excuses for that, but they also hear something that they gravitate to. They hear something that is on the level of, Krishnamurti, or, Muji, or anyone. It resonates, just like every teacher says something that draws them in. So what is it that Keith said that was so alluring? I want to know. I'm very curious. Also, the reason I do these reaction videos is actually so we can learn what to look for. We can watch these teachers who we know are horrible, or maybe just they're not beasts or they're not animals, but they're just self-help people. And we can start to learn what they do, because they actually all kind of act somewhat the same. They're not completely different. All this world, and I'm not looking at Christian or Muslim or Buddhist teachers. I do kind of keep it either New Age or Hindu inspired, Advaita Vedanta. There is a type of behavior you get, and then some are really extreme, and then some are extreme in the other end, and those are the great true teachers. I'd put Santosha Tantra and Mother Mira in that batch, who I've done reaction videos to. But we can learn what to see, and we can see how they act, and we can see that the bad ones all kind of act the same and sound the same, and we can start to pick up on that. So when we find someone, we are now in a position where we go, wait a minute. I've heard this come out of the mouth of numerous bad teachers. See? That's kind of what I do with these reaction videos. It's one to hear stuff. I'm truly curious what these teachers are saying. Like when I did my Mother Mira one, I didn't know she spoke, so I wanted to know what she said. And actually, since then, I've bought a book about her. I was so enthralled by that reaction. Other times, I just want to sort of dissect their gibberish to give you tools to defend yourself against them. So, essentially, what I'm saying is, I want you to follow the true faith of Hinduism, if you're following it, Sanatana Dharma, whatever you want to call it. Follow the path that leads you to Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva. Follow this and be full in your faith and grow in your spirituality. I don't want you to follow someone who's going to do horrible harm to you that then will require like another guru to clean it all up. We've already got enough mess in our world. Why add another 10 years of mess that we have to purge, you know? Or you just then leave the faith completely and you're just like, screw our religion. I don't want you to leave God. I want you to be with God, but I want you to have a healthy relationship. So doing these reaction videos is my way to teach you and to give you tools, and we learn together, and I just love cult studies as it is. So this is a way of growing. Does this make sense? I hope it makes sense. And if you don't like Keith and you wonder why I'm doing this, I'm not promoting his stuff. I'm trying to learn from his stuff. So for those who say I shouldn't even talk about it, nope, I think we absolutely need to talk about these people because we need to see what they are doing, and then we need to find others and go, okay, are you sounding like Keith or do you sound like Mother Mira? Oh, you sound like Mother Mira. Well, in that case, I think we can keep going with you. Oh, wow, you sound like Keith, or you sound like Jim Jones, or you sound like Charles Manson. Oh, okay, well, you know what? Got push and, pull here. Maybe I'll buy your book and call it a day. We need to be in a strong place, because if you go down that dark road, and I don't want you to go there. I don't want you to go there, and I speak from personal experience. So, it's going to be controversial, but we're going to do this. We are going to react to Keith Raniere today. So, house change. And I went through a bunch of videos and found a bunch of videos of him. So, all but two of these... Yes, all but two of these are from a official Keith Raniere Conversations YouTube page. Sorry, I just can't get my headphones comfortable today. There we go. So two of these I found on this one YouTube page, and they go way back in time, and they're not professional. They're just kind of off-the-cuff recordings, and that's really interesting to me. The rest of these are all a formal sit-down. He's talking to Alison Mack, and then he's talking to somebody else. So we'll see if that impacts this, the formal YouTube page, which is no longer being updated. Now, what else did I want to say? When I went through that YouTube page of all his stuff, a lot of it wasn't really on religion. It was really interesting. I was expecting so much more about religion, but he was talking about Tourette's syndrome and other stuff and things that just weren't... Oh, entertainment. He was talking about entertainment with Alison, of course, but he's a spiritual guru. He's not a director of movies. Why is he talking about this other stuff? And I don't know why he's doing that. I think these are all... The clips we're going to see are cuts from bigger interviews, but it really looks like he's kind of promoting himself not as a spiritual guy, but as sort of just a life teacher, a life coach, which is ironic because that's kind of what John DeRuiter does today. He no longer promotes himself as a spiritual teacher. He promotes himself as sort of this life coach. Okay, interesting. You call yourself a divine being, yet you promote yourself as a life coach. See, this is just by looking at the YouTube videos, just by looking at the names of them, we already begin to see something questionable. Okay, so it's already a learning experience. Um, the other two videos I found, and actually we're gonna watch those first. It's the first two in the list. I found on this other channel, and I went trolling through YouTube, but I couldn't really find a lot with him. A lot of stuff on him seems to be post-trial or a lot of interviews with ex-followers, and I didn't want that. I wanted stuff that was really pre-trial. I don't know. I guess he never really got out there that much. Or outside of realms of sexy actresses. So here we go. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm walking into. And I am so afraid, I'm going to tell you right now, that what we hear sounds good. That scares me. That scares me. So let's start with the oldest stuff, the unprofessional stuff. We'll go with this first one. Keith Raniere, idiot. Nah, that's not biased.
Could you tell us about your ideas for this education for a new Earth?
Oh, that's interesting. Children need to become adults. That is, in our bodies, they're mature. We can breed, we can go out and produce, we can sustain ourselves. But then there's another stage of upbringing, of education that must happen, taking adults to become humanitarian adults, ecological adults.
So, the question is about New Earth. I have no clue what he's asking about. Obviously, Keith knows, and he's responding to it, because if I was sitting there, I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. New Earth? I don't know. So I don't know who made this video, and I don't know why this video was made, so there's probably context that's missing. I'm not going to hold it against him because I'm ignorant. But we immediately run into something which is a term, ecological adults. Do you notice how gurus like to create words? Adida did this. Other teachers do this. I think Teal Swan's done it. They create these little catchphrases. Oh, Deepak Chopra, Mr. Quantum Everything. They create these little phrases that you've never heard before to describe something that may or may not be that abnormal. But when you listen to, let's say, a more traditional Swami, I did 2 videos of Swami Jagannananda of the Ramakrishna group. I didn't like him, but I will give him credit for having never made up any of these little catchphrases, easy to copyright catchphrases, essentially. He talked about Vivekananda. He mentioned not so much scripture, but he did mention India, and he mentions things that we hear a lot in Hindu talk. But when you get someone like Keith, let's see, who was the John DeRuiter and other gurus I've just seen, they like to create phrases. Because you know what that gives you? Again, stuff to copyright. Stuff to then work a book around. Hey, you should buy my book because I'm talking about ecological adults, and this is really important for you to know, even though you've never heard this phrase before. And honestly, the phrase is probably just whatever. It's just adults who are conscious of the world. So there's nothing special about them, but I'm selling you it as special. It's like secret information. They all do this. They all do this. Not that it's necessarily always bad, but it's something we should be leery of. So that is the first thing I would say, is that he's kind of following the pattern of other teachers who throw out these vocabulary words that you need to learn because they're special. That is it almost steps into Robert Lifton's 8 points of cult criteria, which I've discussed on this show. One of the points is insider-outsider language, where we have words that mean something that have a different meaning than for you. For example, I say the word God and it has different meaning than when you say the word God, or I have a phrase, ecological adults, that has a special meaning that insiders know. This insider-outsider language is one of the traits that makes a cult. You need all 8, but we're already almost there with this one.
Adults that can understand the nature of being on a planet, being in an environment with many, many people and many, many different types, and the basic practices of how to do that. So,
basic practice of having how to be an adult in a world with lots of adults and lots of people, isn't that called life? Or are there people in this world who have no idea how to exist in the world with lots of people? Show me one person who does not know how to exist in a world with lots of people. That person probably lives on an island. And I don't know how they live. So this whole concept is already shaky when you start thinking about it. Yes, it feels good. Oh, it's very ecological, and ecological makes us feel good. Climate change, etc., etc. But the concept of an adult living in the world with other people, well, we need to find those special people who know how to do that. Well, we may not all do it well, but we all know how to do it. I'm looking out my window right now and see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars parked outside my window, and I can't even tell you how many have gone by since I started the show. And I see 2 people in a park right now across the way. Actually, a car just went by, and I see some other cars on the highway. That's life. I'm living in a world with other people, and I know how to inhabit the world, so I don't go out and break into this guy's car, and I don't run into traffic, and I hold a job. This is called life. It's not ecological adults. It's not special adults that know how to do this. So think about these things. I say this all the time. Always ask questions. And then I think you'll find that the phrases they say are all feel good, and then immediately underneath the surface, you'll find this is all skin level talk. There's nothing underneath. There's no bones. There's no guts. There's nothing here.
One of the most important things I believe in the upbringing of children is that children need to be exposed and have deep relationships, teacher-adult relationships, where the child is brought up by people from different cultures, so that the child does not feel, first and foremost, I am of such and such a culture.
So is he saying I should have a kindergarten where a Muslim teacher is raising someone under Sharia law and also another teacher is raising someone under Jewish customs, and then we speak German at one point? That's kind of impossible. Because if I'm teaching a class in America, I'm teaching a class with American culture. I'm not going to be teaching that kindergarten according to the way Japan does it. Now, I might be a Japanese teacher, so there might be some influence, but you can never actually have a multicultural education. That's truly impossible, because, well, what's the base culture? And maybe the teacher's Japanese, but the school system's in America, and also you only have one kindergarten teacher, or maybe 2. So that's not really doable. And we already have classes like music or whatever, which is trying to teach kids different things. And I know growing up, all through my classes from kindergarten on up, I had kids of other culture. I know I had an Indian girl in one of my classes, one of my kindergarten classes. I had a couple black kids. I had boys and girls, poor and rich. I had all sorts of different cultures. That's normal. That's actually normal. Maybe in some countries, though, maybe if you go to Moscow, maybe if you're in kindergarten in Moscow, they only have Russian kids in that kindergarten. You might not have any Muslims sitting in there. But in America, I think we're pretty diverse, most of this country, and we're pretty used to seeing other people.
And then second most, I am human. And I translate all these cultures, as I did when I was a child, translating the French culture into American, translating German culture into American.
That's actually a criticism us who practice Sanatana Dharma say, because we see yoga translated into American, and we hate it because it sucks the soul out of it. A lot of people criticize Americans for basically taking other cultures and sucking the soul out and then regurgitating it. It's not cultural appropriation. Well, yeah, it's kind of a cultural appropriation, but it's cultural appropriation where we basically claim something as our own, but we've taken it from someplace, we've sucked the soul and we've changed it, and then we regurgitate it. So he's literally advocating something a lot of us don't like.
Translating Chinese culture into American.
Why? Why not just keep it as Chinese?
That subjugates those cultures. But I think our children could have a much better time if they were brought up with 3 or 5 different cultures.
So he's literally saying that is what. Okay, so I was wrong. He wasn't critiquing it. I jumped the gun. He was actually saying that's what we currently do. But now he's saying what a kid should learn Chinese, German, and English in kindergarten. Again, it's not really doable.
And that they see themselves as something that is beyond those cultures, that is human, that is common to all of those cultures, and that every individual that participates in these different cultures is not that culture first human.
Okay, so I think I got it. So what he's saying is a child should be raised in a culture with diverse cultures, but we should see the commonality in all the cultures. But if we look for the commonality of how we're all human, doesn't that mean now we're all the same? So now why we learn about different cultures if the end goal is to be the same? So what he's advocating is learn about different cultures, but be all one culture, essentially. Look for the commonalities so we're all one. So then what's the point of studying different cultures? You know, all religions are one. It's that same argument. My questions might be a little off, and I jumped the gun a little bit there, but the fact is I'm asking questions about what he's saying, and I'm confused. I've maybe made you confused. I've maybe made a confusing issue out of something that's not, but just the fact that I can do this so simply puts him in an interesting spot. There are some teachers who they may say something, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't ask you a question. I don't know what to respond. You've overwhelmed me. But with this, I'm asking a question and trying to pull it apart, and just the fact that I really can do that, and I'm coming up with a mess, is the education that we're getting from Keith.
Second,
I'll let him
but
talk
human
a little bit.
first, that happens to have this flavor or that culture or that culture. There's a common culturalness, and if you are a child, and as you said, and you are brought up in multiple cultures, those cultures become family to you, become part of you, become part of your memories, your upbringing. You can't go against that culture, because going against that culture is going against yourself. And that's the actual point, to have a recognition that going against another culture, going against another human, is going against ourselves. Am I proud to be...
From this planet.
Oh, very.
Why?
I think it is the most awesome gift to exist. So to have the opportunity to have a body, to live and to grow, and to have all of these moments through which we experience...
His culture talk is on the verge of gibberish. The idea is good in the essence, but when you break it down, it doesn't quite go. But how did we get from that to being on this planet? Oh, that's right, the New Earth thing, whatever. And he answers it. He's like, yes, I'm proud to be on this planet.
Joy is...
So does that mean he believes in other planets?
The most awesome, incredible experience. And this is all a gift to us. And
From
if
who?
you enjoy your moments, how could you not be overjoyed, overgrateful to be given that opportunity?
By who? It's a gift, but gift is always a given. Who is giving the gift? God? A deity? Somebody bigger than us? You notice what wasn't talked about that in that video? Spirituality. There was nothing spiritual in that. Some discussion of kindergarten and New Earth, but nothing truly spiritual was mentioned. You got a gift. It's a great gift, but, well, if it's such a great gift, why not recognize the gift from where it's come? You know how your mother used to say when you get a gift on Christmas, thank your grandma for giving it to you, even if you hate it? Well, why didn't you just tell us who this gift is from and thank that person? Because that would be like spiritual, and as I said at the beginning, I think he's trying to promote himself as a life coach. That was quasi-gibberish to me. The fact that it was edited also says there may have been more, but it sounded good, but I don't know. It didn't work for me. So, proud to be from this planet, theplanetpride.com. Okay.
Just to put a note, I do have...
You can look that up on your own. Actually, yeah, you could look this up on your own. So this is the other video from the old... these are the old videos from this other website I found, obviously.
Because I've been pondering how to free the process up.
Okay.
And I was going to make a statement, but it's not appropriate to make the statement without everyone here just to hear it.
Okay.
The statement, I want to make it in isolation, and it does not request a response.
Okay.
So I think that'll help free things up.
Okay. But you don't want to say it here now, you mean?
I can if you want,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's very simply the process that you are doing. How do I want to? For example, you have accused at times people of ganging up on you.
Just so you know, ganging up and peer pressure is a second point on Robert Lifton's cult criteria. So I don't know the situation. I don't know what he's talking about. Have no clue. There was no details on this video. It was just an old video. But theoretically, we already have 2 out of 8 points that would make him a cult leader.
It is yet what you sort of manifest here.
Right.
You may want to also think that in a process where a group of people get together, make some decisions based on data. Mm-hmm. Data may not be complete, may not be true. Mm-hmm. Make conclusions on that data. Mm-hmm. Execute the conclusions, especially with someone like myself, who, as I said, no matter what you say, I'm not even going to bring up the controverting data.
Right.
So you will not get it from me.
Yeah.
You may want to some degree, make the process more transparent and open it,
Okay.
so that you can get
I think that's
the
good.
other data.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
No, I
That-
think that's great.
it's not a. It's not a statement for exchange.
Yep.
You do what you want with it.
No, and I would agree with that though.
So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't really want to criticize this data. It sounds weird, but I have zero context, so I do want to be somewhat fair here in what I comment upon. But he just said that this is not a statement for debate. So he is this leader of this group. Well, a third point on the cult criteria is this lack of communication. What is said comes down, you don't debate it. What the leader says, that's it, the end of the road. So we already have now more points in this 2-minute clip. We've had 2 points of what brings this group closer to being an actual cult. So I said at the beginning of the show, people who are cult leaders often act alike. And that's how Robert Lifton in 1951, before any of these people were doing anything, he just got his criteria. He looked at all these cults, he compared them all, and he goes, okay, what do we see, and what conclusions can I draw? And I think for the most part, his listing works. Now, if you see, as I say in that episode, someone who says, well, a cult is anyone who just likes money, or, no, that's not true. Or anyone who doesn't worship Jesus, that's not true. And if they say, well, a cult is someone who doesn't worship the holy books of God, that's not true. Because then how would you define Donald Trump's MAGA cult? They don't have any holy books, so is that then? I mean, it becomes weird. So Robert Lifton had a list of things that weren't even religious. You could talk about Star Trek followers. It doesn't even matter. And they're not specifically religious. It's all about behavior. It's not about what's said, and it's not things like, well, if you follow the book of God, then you're not a cult, but if you don't, you're a cult, or whatever. But how do you prove that book is actually God? It doesn't involve any discussions like that. It's just behavior. And other people have expanded upon that list. And it's at least 8 things. He says if it's less than 8, it's too easy to then make pretty much anything a cult. So when you see a group say like anyone who doesn't worship Jesus is a cult, well, that's mind-blowing. That means anyone who's not really a Christian, whatever. It's just, go back, watch that video if you want to know what I'm citing. It will blow your mind, and it change the way you view cults. I view cults exclusively through that lens now of 8 criteria, though there may be more criteria. So anything less than 8 for me is not a cult. Just by doing bad things actually doesn't make him a cult. I'm very strict in that. I apply that on everyone. So just go back and watch that and you'll understand where I'm coming from. So essentially we're kind of 3 points there. His behavior echoes other cults. And other people have written since Robert Lifton, and they've all studied lots of cults, and they've drawn conclusions and say, hey, when you do this, because all these cults do this, you're a cult. So we're already echoing behavior of other cults here.
I don't care to be right or wrong, integrated or not integrated. Whether you think I am or not, could provide proof yes, provide proof no. I do care about what's right with respect to conduct. Understand, for example, the structure that you raise
Right.
in the hands of certain types of people
Right.
works very well.
Mm-hmm.
In the hands of not those type of people, doesn't.
Right.
Blame destroys.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of blame. The way you can counter blame is to be a dictator, which I won't do.
Mm-hmm.
So to allow both is a very difficult thing. In corporations, it's the same thing. In governments, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to be a dictator, but already he said at the beginning of this that his word is that, it's done, there's no debate. So I don't want to be a dictator, but you can't counter my word. Which is it, dude?
Ever notice how, for example, President of the United States ages? Just take before and after shots of them going into office and out. Why do you think? I mean, even though they don't maybe understand ethics completely or whatever, they get a quick primer on what happens if they speak one word sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And people, if you believe it, maybe people die, maybe people are hurt, maybe economies change or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You become a E.F. Hutton. If you say your own opinion,
Mm-hmm.
you can destroy people's lives. That is the nature of becoming prominent.
So, but do you see this as a problem?
So is he comparing himself to the U.S. president? So Keith Raniere is in control of economies and world superpowers and doesn't get any sleep and has security around him. And no, it's not a fair comparison. Not a fair comparison. There's a narcissism here is what there is.
I see that this group does not understand this.
Okay.
I see also that if you had some more of the data with respect to the other people, with dynamics with respect to not just you, but others and other things, you would start to see more of the reality of it. In some ways, the company isn't as bad, or it wasn't as bad a situation as you thought it was.
Okay.
But I believe that the way this was done will destroy the company itself when it did not have to, which is the conundrum. I think you'll see that if you think about it and watch it through.
Well, are you saying that you don't think that we're in a very critical state in the company?
Now we are.
We were before?
Not the same way. One's critical in terms of...
Based on your opinion.
Yeah, in other words, you can arbitrate, as long as you have a certain type of ethic within a system, a certain type of procedure, you can cut through garbage eventually. That's why I told you when you were saying some things to me that I thought were quite contrary, but I told you, bring it up the process.
Right.
I said, part of the problem is people don't bring it up the process. And you say, well, people don't know about the process. I said, great, that's why you should bring it up the process so they can.
Well, let me...
But understand, that will fortify the company.
Yeah.
That will fortify...
Well, but do you understand that I think that's part of the problem is that we don't teach that process. So nobody knows even about it.
Do you hear what you hear what I said?
That you think that it's good.
And that having you pursue it and bring it up, so it ultimately went even arbitrating between Nancy and yourself with me.
Right.
That was very good.
But what I'm trying to say, though, Keith, is that we believe that there are certain problems, the pink or white elephants, whatever we want to call them, in the room, and collectively a group of us, and there are many people outside of this group of 10. There are about 40 people that I could list for you right now that see these similar elephants, and yet we as a company don't ever address those elephants. And
I don't necessarily agree with you, but maybe not address it the way you think it should be addressed.
that's okay. I leave open that that's possibly true, but what I see are the effects.
I know.
The effects are
But you don't have
our
the
company is falling apart.
You don't have the experience of leadership.
Okay.
You don't have the experience of preserving people's lives with what you say. And the truth of the matter is, if
in a
it
way,
takes
neither
me,
do you.
Yes, I do.
No, you
No,
don't,
he
because
doesn't.
the only company before this was Consumers Byline, and that, in my understanding, fell apart within a few years, or was on the downhill after a couple of years when you got sued or whatever it was.
Oh!
It's not. Well, here's the thing.
Oh, wow.
I've been shot at because of my beliefs.
Right.
I've had to make choices. Should I have bodyguards? Should I have them armed or not?
Right.
I've had people killed
Right.
because of my beliefs
Right.
and because of their beliefs.
Whoa, 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 whoa. First of all, her comments were, whoo, hot. I feel sorry for this woman. Obviously, she saw what she was in, and others did too. But did he just say, I've had people killed because of my beliefs? I need to back this up. I need to hear that again.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
I've been shot at because of my belief.
I've been shot at because of my belief. Okay.
Right.
I've had to make choices. Should I have bodyguards? Should I have them armed or not?
Should I have bodyguards or should I have them armed or not? Okay, that's fine.
Right.
I've had people killed
Right.
because of my beliefs.
I've had people killed because of my beliefs. That's exactly what he said. Whoa. So there's two ways of interpreting that. One is he has beliefs somebody else somehow is connected to him, and that person was killed because they were tied to him or followed him or did something. Okay, that's one way, and the sort of being killed because of his relationship. Or is Keith saying, I have had someone killed? Like I went to the mob and gave them $100 or $10,000 or whatever, and said, please kill this person to get rid of someone who's against me. So potentially you could interpret this as Keith Raniere confessing to having somebody or more than one person murdered. Now I know nothing about Keith other than what we saw in the news for the trial. I don't think murder ever came up in that, or maybe it did and I missed it. There was a lot of articles a long time ago, but is he literally confessing to having someone murdered, or is he saying that someone was murdered who had a relationship to him? Because if he just proclaimed murder on a video, I am now literally sharing the confession of a murderer. That's frightening to me that I've stumbled upon that. I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's a monster. So on one hand, I actually think to myself, did he literally try to have someone killed, or has had someone killed? That's literally the phrase, I've had someone killed because of my beliefs. It could be interpreted either way. I don't know. I'm not a policeman. I'm not an investigator. Maybe someone's watching this. But that is very scary to hear that. It's sort of the same thing we heard with like Osho. People got killed. Did he do it? Did he not? But that creeps me out. Why would any great guru talk about having people killed around him, or even kind of throw this out in a conversation I don't think it's completely nonchalantly, but oh, it's like you're watching the devil plan something. But literally, we just heard it twice. I've had people killed because of my beliefs. I've had people killed. Is he confessing to murder? And why would you say that while on camera? I guess no one ever expected this to be shown in public. I don't know where this video came from. The link is down below. Oh. Yeah, that just creeps me out. Because no matter how you interpret it, someone died because of Keith. Wow. Okay, let's finish this up. Oh, I'm sorry.
And because of their beliefs,
Right.
and because of things that I've said, and I'm mindful of that. And I'm leading an organization that's doing something very good. You might say, this is an old Christian adage, which I think is very true. The brighter the light, the more the bugs.
Right.
So I think what we have is very bright light.
With respect to...
So what he has is a very bright light, having just said that people have died. So how bright is your light? Well, some of us would say not too bright. And we condemn any religious leader who has killed people. Anyone who got killed because of religious leader. Now, if you got killed fighting for someone, let's say you're fighting for Allah, you're fighting for Buddhism, there is a fine line here. So actually, maybe someone was fighting for him. But there's a difference between going to war against a crusade from Europe versus this little neighborhood rapist. There's no war here, but the way he talked about himself, it was like he was as important as the U.S. president. So he has got a huge ego, huge narcissism thing going on here. Huge narcissism thing. So I guess living in a compound, whatever, makes you as important as the U.S. president. That's just huge narcissism. I feel sorry for this woman, whoever she is. Oh, that was strange, and we're not going to happen. Oh, I'm out of juice. Out of water. I can't take another drink. I just want to purge myself of what we just heard, because that was just so bad. So why would you follow this guy? If you saw this video, why would you go, oh, this is a great teacher? So now we're going to go into something, as you see, that is very much the opposite. He's cut his hair. He looks not like an ex-hippie, but a businessman. And this is someone who's with him or following him, I don't know, whatever. And it's very prim and proper. So now we're going to into the series of videos which show him in the way he wants to be presented. I tried to find the videos that have more of a spiritual inclination, though so far I've heard nothing in 10 minutes so far, nothing that's spiritual from a spiritual teacher. Big dead giveaway. And I've had 3 cult criteria, and talking about people being murdered because of you is not on that list, but it certainly doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth. But now we're going to be going to something that's very, very professional, and in a way, I don't think this is going to be him speaking the truth, because it's probably scripted and well planned, but we'll see what he says. Anyways, I'm giving him, like everybody else I do a reaction video to, the benefit of the doubt. So I could stop right here and echo what every newspaper has said. This guy's a monster. But no, I'm looking for what made him attractive to people. What did people hear going, oh, wow, I'd like to follow this guy? So far, it's just surface level feel-good stuff. And one very horrible video. But I want to find what makes him interesting. So I'm fair to him. We're going to watch a bunch of videos here. They're all pretty short. So I don't want anyone saying that I'm just jumping. I'm trying to do what I can. Sadly, there wasn't any other old videos I found of him. So I wish I had after those 2, or I wish I hadn't. I don't know. That was rough.
When I tell people about what's happened, I say, look, Nancy Salzman worked with somebody in a matter of 4 hours. Their Tourette's is down 90%. For people that are involved with the project, this is becoming kind of the norm, which is incredible for us. But for other people, I think it still just sounds too good to be true. Like they can't even imagine how that could be. Even if you show them the results. Do you have any idea of what might be happening, of how the methodology works? That
I believe so. The methodologies, the procedures, things like that are created based on certain understandings. You might say those understandings are innovations within the human psychology. There's patents that support around this and that are being pursued around this. To people who spend, let's suppose they've spent all their lives trying to plow a field. If someone comes to their field with an ox-dragged cart, they look outside and the next day it's all plowed. It seems like a miracle. It isn't. It's a tool. I think we have quite potent tools, and I think our tools are unique. And that uniqueness makes the results, at times we get results where other tools don't get results, as is the nature with many tools. If you've never seen a saw before, suddenly the cut piece of log seems like a miracle. I don't think there's anything miraculous at all about what we do. I think it's very straightforward and explainable. We use what.
So this is part of a bigger talk where he's discussing Tourette's, and I don't know why he even did this, because I haven't watched the other videos. I haven't watched any of them, obviously. I'm hearing from him things that, we have a tool that's very unique. Don't know what that tool is. Maybe it's in another video, or maybe he's about to list it. And, this tool it's not a miracle, but people think it's a miracle because they don't know. That's kind of what I'm hearing from him. And the other guy's going, oh, wow, this is really fascinating. But if we compare this to the very first talk I did today, is he really saying anything that's amazing or insightful? It's really like he's just trying to talk about what life is like, but he's looking at life and trying to make it look like most people don't see life. Most of us have tools, we have computers, but we don't realize how miraculous these things are, or we think they're miraculous when they're not, or something. He's doing this weird sort of mind game with us, where he's taking things that we all deal with and we're all aware of, like we all can live in the world with other people, but trying to make it feel like we have a special insight. Oh my God, I live in the world with other people? Oh my God. That's the feeling I'm getting from him. He's trying to take normal things, nothing special, but make us feel that we now have some special insight. So it's a manipulative thing, and it's almost like, hey, I'm giving you secret information here that nobody else has, and I'm enlightening you to something that actually isn't enlightening in the least. And there's no talk about God anywhere. None of this. We're now over 11 minutes and no talk about God. But it's giving you secret information. And that is on Robert Lifton's points of cult criteria. Secret information that no one else is going to get. And once you get it, it's mind expanding. So he's doing a very good job trying to be a cult leader.
What you might call a conversational type of technology understanding. When Nancy Salzman first met me and I was demonstrating the technologies, he's very well versed in many human performance technologies, and she wasn't able to see what I was doing. So it's certainly outside of those patterns. So, some people say, your tool's better, it's not a matter of being better or worse. Tools are best for the thing that they're, suited to do. And if our tool is unique, there's certain things that it is suited to do that probably no one else can do right now. Who knows, there may be a whole bunch of people that do it better later. But I believe our tool set is potent. I believe our tool set is unique. And for all the people that have worked with us, who've been involved, whether it's been medical doctors, psychiatrists, people who are specialists in hypnosis, people are specialists in NLP, people are specialists in all these different things. They come and they see what we do. Most of the time they can't see what we're doing. And then when they learn what we're doing, they say, wow, this is really unique, interesting, because we have reasons for what we do. So I think it's very potent. And it's I think it's relatively simple. It takes, in some ways, overcoming your own limitations to do it. But when we first started with using the sort of the main staff of our technology, I was going to program a computer to do it. I was looking to do that. Of course, with human sense abilities and the things that we can do with rapport and things like that, we can do more than a computer can much quicker. But there's a certain portion of what we do that I believe could be well done with computer.
Wow. I was just thinking about all my experiences over the last 6 years. If it would have been a computer instead of a person, that would have been.
No, a computer doesn't have the same sort of sense acuity and interpretation of that sense acuity that humans do.
So there is a thing that gurus do who are bad gurus, and that is there is an element of truth in what they say. And often they do good things. Many of these gurus are narcissists. I think he is. But that doesn't mean they're evil and looking to create evil. They think they're doing good things, and they often do end up doing good things. So he might have been helping out Tourette's folks, and he might have had something truly unique, and it may have had good results. And that is completely appropriate to bad gurus, and actually great that he did something good. It didn't cancel out the bad. And sometimes I think that's what happens, is that there's something in him and he knows he's a beast. So then he does something else to kind of do good, so that then he can say, well, look at all the good that I'm doing. It's also a great promotional tool. But there's a mental thing going on. Well, if I do this, then it cancels out that. And, well, look at all this. I'm such a saint, and I've helped all these people. Well, you know, if your life is a messed up, well, it's your fault. It's this weird thing that happens, but it is true, and it's an odd thing that sometimes these men and women, though it seems to be more men who are bad gurus, do actually some very positive things and really do make some positive contributions. It's a weird dichotomy, and it's a philosophical conundrum, you know, but it is a thing. So I'm not actually saying anything on this because he may have actually helped some people legitimately, and great. I'm happy for that. I'm glad he did, and I'm glad these people like this fellow had their lives changed. It's just the person who did it had some issues. So it's this weird thing.
But it is neat what you're saying is that it can be part of what's happening, though. It can be reproducible in that way.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we spoke of in the very beginning, Nancy Salzman and myself. We wanted to do these results without talent. We would always say, do it without talent. Do it like you didn't have any insight, you didn't have any even hypothesis, all these different things. Just do it like a machine without talent. So a lot of our results are doable, and we teach them without talent. Talent on top, we can do some things that are pretty fancy.
Well, it's funny hearing you say that, or interesting, because when I went through my 16-day, and there I had, already some great shifts with what I was experiencing in my body. I tell people that the head trainers of that training, one had a background as a waitress at a cheesecake factory, and the other one was a bartender, meaning people that helped me profoundly with my journey didn't have a background in psychology, didn't have a PhD in understanding, the brain or anything like that.
The wrong credentials.
They had the wrong credentials, but they had dedicated years and years and years to, practicing rational inquiry and understanding the education. And that always blew my mind, that they could study this and it was that reproducible, and they could help me in such a profound way.
Mm-hmm. The thing that stands in the way the most of our reproducibility are people's own issues and their own beliefs. And even their beliefs in what they can do. You're coming into that saying that believing maybe that a waiter couldn't possibly do that. If the waiter believed that, they would never be able to do it. Most of us can prove our limiting beliefs correct. You know, if I believe I can't run a mile in a certain time, I can almost always prove myself correct. And especially if I have an issue of wanting to be right, then that's double fortified. I've not only proven my
right.
limiting belief, but I'm right, and that's a big plus for me.
I know folks who are like
So,
that.
I know that one well.
yeah, a lot of people have that, and that's something that's easy to, over time, transcend. The right, wrong thing's sort of fun.
Yeah, I know folks who
With
live
you,
like that.
you came, and you know, although that wasn't the primary objective, a lot of the stuff, the Tourette's that you experienced, fell into certain things, and over that year and a half, you did certain sourcing, certain methods, stuff like that, that allowed that, if you will, to lessen. And was at some point, as you recognized it, desirable, I imagine, to you, probably scary to you. So I imagine what happened is you went through, and when you recognized it had gone away, in part, not all the way, did you feel fear?
I actually felt the fear pretty early on in the process.
Right. Okay.
Well, actually.
So then we
within
probably dealt with the fear.
very early on.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the 5-day, and then I think a few weeks later I went and did the middle 5-day, and I think it's the second day, you know, you look at fear.
Yeah.
And I worked with Nancy Salzman because all of a sudden, she had come into the intensive, and I didn't know this at the time, but because she knew that I was there, because I had Tourette's, and I'm sure she was curious about what was going on. And I thought I was going to do, one of the sourcings with her, one of the conversations with her, and I thought that in that conversation, my whole Tourette's was going to just evaporate into thin air. And right before the conversation, though, again, I didn't know this at the time, but I ended up going to the bathroom, and I started like dry heaving, and all these things were happening because I decided that I was going to look at the fear of losing Tourette's. At some point I decided, you know what, maybe that would be a good fear. Just maybe it would be a good fear to look at. And I ended up having this huge reaction right beforehand.
The fear of the fear, in effect.
Yeah.
Because if you looked at the fear of losing Tourette's, you may lose it's very funny, these things are self-referential, and we handle those things. They're like tautologies almost.
Let's contemplate what he just said for a minute. The fear of the fear. Well, actually, no, that's not what the guy said. So this guy just talked for 2 minutes, and that was very interesting. And this is a way you get lured into these gurus, because Keith didn't say anything. It was the other guy giving his experience, and that was a very interesting thing. Keith just nodded, agreed with him. But we'll often say, well, because you're talking with this teacher, we kind of then look at the teacher in a better light, even though he hasn't said a thing. It's almost like a devotee says something great about the teacher, and if we respect the devotee, then we kind of by default respect the teacher. So that's kind of what's happening here. We have a guy who's being encouraging, and he's great, and he's having this wonderful experience, and it probably is truly wonderful. I know nothing about who this guy is or what they're talking about, obviously, and thus we kind of psychologically see Keith in a better light. It's a PR thing. It's manipulating us. You know, if you had someone here who was telling the complete opposite story about, oh God, I had the Tourette's, and look at me, I still have the Tourette's, and you've actually made it worse, we wouldn't look at Keith in the same light. So there's a subtle way that we are being manipulated, and when we deal with gurus like him, we have to be aware of this. Also, notice how many minutes now have we sat through videos and no talk of God. None. So he's like a spiritual life coach then. Not a spiritual life coach. He's a life coach who, in his inner circles, I guess maybe taught God or something. But you're not hearing it publicly because God's a scary word. But you see just this great man who's being scientifically helpful. And thus you're lured in. So we can kind of see how it is. And he's not a bad-looking guy, you know, just a middle-aged guy. And I'm actually looking the way his hair is, and I'm like, oh God, I hope mine's not parted like that. And his shirt's opened up, so he thinks he's kind of cool, you know. But he's certainly a narcissist. But anyways, what he just said, the fear of the fear. that's not what the guy said. The guy said he was afraid of losing the Tourette's. He's not afraid of the fear of losing Tourette's. He is just afraid of losing the Tourette's. It's become such a part of him, he's afraid of losing that. There's no additional fear. So what Keith said isn't really a summary of what the guy just explained. It's a distortion, actually. So, he's not really listening.
You have the fear of losing Tourette's, and then you have the fear of losing the fear. Most people have an...
No, did he really talk about the fear of losing the fear, though? That's not what this guy was talking about. He was afraid. He went in the bathroom. He was afraid of this. He never really talked about the fear of losing the fear. That's Keith now going off on a tangent. That's actually not what this guy was talking about. So Keith is not really in the moment listening. He's got something else going on in his head. He's got a point he wants to get to. It kind of reminds me of when I was watching the John DeRuiter interview, and John was being interviewed, and sometimes John would respond with, "Oh, yeah, great, okay, that's funny." And then other times, you'd swear his response was sort of like premeditated, like, "Oh, I heard a word, okay, now I'm going to talk about this thing I talk about." It was like a script clicking on. It doesn't really connect. We'll keep going.
Attachment, or they have some sort of an issue, like I always say, they want the red Porsche. And if I'm a person that's really attached to having a red Porsche, and I come to someone to work that attachment, my internal processing, my internal loop sort of goes like this. I say, okay, I have an attachment to wanting a red Porsche, and I think I'm going to work that attachment. So if I work that attachment, it means I won't want the red Porsche. And if I don't want the red Porsche, then I may not get the red Porsche, because I may not even try to get the red Porsche. So then I'll never get the red Porsche. And I want the red Porsche, so I don't want to get rid of that fear. I don't want to get rid of that desire. I don't want to get rid of that attachment. So the attachment makes you attached to the attachment. If you're scared of losing Tourette's and then you're going in to work that fear, you'd be scared, because what if the fear goes away? It brings up the same fear that you're removing. So we have ways of working that.
Yes. And obviously I wasn't even, maybe not obviously, even before I started the 5-day, I wasn't even aware that I had a fear of losing the Tourette's. Mm-hmm. But the 5-day had moved me so much, and I had enough shifts and began to have a certain level of self-awareness, very small level of self-awareness, that I realized that I did have some fear about it. Mm-hmm. And that was really the beginning of the journey of overcoming it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on now.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the source,
to
which
Miss
is
Alison
the company
Mack
that you created for actors, artists, people who want to get better at expressing in general. And several years ago when we first met, I had said to you, would you be willing to work with me on becoming a better actress? And you said, yeah, we'll talk about it. And then...
Sorry, it didn't work. Her character on Smallville and whatever, she's really not that great. She's just cute. Cuter with short hair, but that's just me. But notice we have here, she's talking about the source. And so the name of this video is What Makes the Source Unique. So now more than once we've had a buzzword, the source. The source has nothing that you can understand. You don't even know what it is. It's an insider-outsider thing. He's got a buzzword. He can now sell that buzzword. It's just like ecological adults at the beginning of this. And it's a secret. Like, once you know about the source, you've got it. Well, sadly, it didn't work because, like I said, I don't think she was that great. But buzzwords. And again, no spirituality here. This is really like a life coaching guy, I don't know, whatever. Or they're not selling any spirituality deliberately.
Several years later, you started working with me and a bunch of other people to develop a curriculum specifically for actors. And I've been talking to different people about it, and like different actors and things like that, enrolling them in the idea of coming and participating and seeing what you've created.
Gotta stop here because this is one of the criticisms of Alison Mack, was that she was a recruiter for Keith and bringing folks in. I know she did bring in one of the actresses from Smallville. It was Lana Lane, the character of Lana Lane, who joined and then left way beyond any of the crap, went to court. And she was recruiting people. But it's really interesting who is interviewing Keith in both of these things. Insiders. People who have worked with him, people that know him, people who have done something with him. Not an outsider coming in. Not Barbara Walters, not, I know whoever, Walter Cronkite, not Walter Cronkite. What? I forget now. Anyways, many of you watching won't know who that is. You don't, it's not an outsider asking hard questions. It's an insider. Oh, we have such a great, relationship, and now we can talk about it with the world. There is a huge bias here. And we also know that this girl was kind of into him, even though she got married to this other woman, whatever, but we know she was into him. We know Alison was, part of his inner circle. So it's super manipulative. This is why I never really trust documentaries made by gurus to promote their organization to tell the truth, because, well, no one in your organization is going to bring up anything controversial. And you're never going to have someone interviewed, well, yeah, I followed the guru for years and years, and, well, there was that time that was really bad, they're never going to say that. It's always going to be manipulated, insider stuff, super controlled.
Because it's been incredible for me.
So really a joke.
And a lot of the questions that they ask.
And notice she said it's been incredible for her. So we've had two people who have worked with him, and it's just been super successful. So obviously Keith is the king. He's like Einstein. He's like the president. He's magical. You see, they're glomming on him how great he is, and look at what he's done. You should join. You should join his group. That's the message being sent out. Very, very simple.
It's like, well, how is it different than Meisner? How is it different than Stella Adler or whatever? And a lot of what...
And I got to pause one more time because the thoughts are rolling as I'm looking at her, because she just mentioned Meisner and Stella Adler, who are acting teachers, like the method and other things. These are, Stanislavski, and these are approaches to acting. So we have a teacher who's now doing Tourette's and acting classes, and we know was a spiritual guru. Notice how these spiritual gurus, they often become experts in things they know nothing about. What is his acting background? Nothing. What is his theater or TV or movie background? As far as I know, nothing. And doing high school theater doesn't count. Having done that and then doing nearly 300 theater productions in 5 states and 2 countries, I can speak as someone with a theater background. I know where I lack in knowledge, but yet he is creating a new acting method? Really? He's a spiritual guru, a life coach who ran a business, but he's creating a new acting method even though he has no experience in that? And he's creating a Tourette's thing that even though he has no scientific background, he's suddenly an expert on everything. It's the Bill Gates dilemma, because Bill Gates seems to be an expert on everything, it seems like. You got to be cautious when these gurus start talking about other things. Really? I mean, I've done 300 theater productions, and I still know what I don't know. But yet you can create a new acting method, even though you've probably never performed or outside of high school? Yeah, really? Red light. Red warning light. Reason he's doing this, though, we know, is if you have an acting class, it's going to be easier for Alison to get her acting folks to him. If he has a class for making sushi, they may not be so into it. But an acting class, this is going to help your career. You should come and work with Keith. So this totally is like, hey, I've got Alison Mack. Maybe I've got some other actresses here with me. I got to tap into their world so I can make myself great. That's all he's doing. We know in hindsight, that's all he did, was he created things around those he had in order to bring in more people. I mean, if she was, yoga teacher, it's very likely he might have created his own form of yoga to bring in other yoga teachers. It's very likely that he's just using her. Well,
the answers that I've given have been like, well, it's a partnership with that, because it gives you the foundation underneath all of the technical skills and all of the kind of traditional approaches to acting that we've had throughout.
Oh God, look at her just going I love you.
It gets to the core of the actor so that you can work on the raw material, and then everything else that they produce is affected by that. but I don't know, like I'm curious to know what your perception is of the curriculum that you created and where it came from. And
Well, it comes from a mix of human behavior and philosophy, and also really technical communication.
So no theater at all.
Acting is all about a type of communication. And being not only
So he created an acting approach not based on any acting knowledge. Okay, got it.
more aware, but more congruent in your communication. So you want people to, if you will, and I'm going to be a bit common in what I say, you want people to buy your character.
right.
And the
Isn't
way
that-
they buy it is they find it congruent and authentic.
How is that common? We all talk about that in every single acting class about believability. We already have that concept in theater. It's not common. If a director says to you, I don't believe you, she doesn't then go, I don't want to be common. I've never heard that term in literally nearly 300 productions, and I can't even tell you how many directors and people I've worked with and number of theaters and all these places. This is not common talk. But he's a narcissist, you see. So, yes, it is kind of common talk because he puts himself up here. We already know that. He's better than you. So, thus, these terms, which are common, in the terms of everyone uses them, he's treating as sort of less than. But, again, he has no theater background. Otherwise, he would just say believability.
Now the question is, I mean, if someone could be totally congruent in a character and express authentically through that character, so they could do any sort of a scene or whatever, certainly that actor could do anything. So the question is, how do you achieve that? How do you achieve congruence? How do you achieve authenticity? And I think there are many roads to do this. The thing that I think makes the source a bit unique is...
the source again.
I come from a non-acting background. You could say, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Which is, yeah.
So,
So why should I-
that's good and bad. The good aspect is it comes from a behaviorist.
So I want to become a brain surgeon. Do I go to someone who's works in construction who might have a new perspective? No. I want to be a woodworker. Do I go to someone who's an auto mechanic to see their new perspective on woodworking and what knives I should use? Because they have a new perspective, you know? They might tell me a different knife. Is that really what we do for things? So if I want to know how to become a better actor, I go to someone who's not an actor? I mean, once in a while, yeah, I can understand that, but...
Humanist sort of
humanist.
practical and philosophical background, dealing with communication, dealing with
Manipulating
all
people.
sorts of things relating to the psychodynamics of people and humans,
Oh, retrospect, just...
without being tainted by the current pedagogy of acting. And there's both a good and a bad. The good is when you have something that comes in like that fresh, it provides a tool that goes outside of the box of all the normal tool sets.
Yes, that is
You know,
true.
any actor that wants to create a methodology of acting, especially if they know there's other methodologies, they're influenced in a certain way.
True.
And that can be very, very good. But at times, it's also good to have something that is not influenced in the normal way by that, as if coming from another planet. So to some degree, the source is not just created for actors, it's created for human communication. It's something that can be used in arbitration, it's something that can be used in negotiations, it's something that can be used in parenting.
So basically, he has a product that can be used by everyone, so everyone should be a part of his world. It's interesting how suddenly we went from an acting class to now something that can be used by anyone, anywhere. It's like they're really opening the door to people who might want to follow this guy. In hindsight, I can say this and probably be more correct than at the time when this was made. People didn't pick up on that.
It's something that could be used in a love relationship. And it comes from that perspective, but does have a strong application
to what you would call that authentic, congruent expression. And it's not tainted by the other schools that are all extraordinary. It's not at all that they're not great. It's that this is different. So one of the things you can say about the source, truly, because the way it was created had not much to do with acting, had to do with the human psychodynamic, has to do with a whole psychodynamic model of not only human behavior, but human moral, ethical action. So understanding that, understanding the way that functions within the body, within the emotions, within the thoughts, and how thoughts interrelate with all of those things, and emotions interrelate, how they all are together as a system, is a body of knowledge that was grown specifically apart from the major schools, not only of acting, but of psychology and philosophy. And it's unique. And in its uniqueness is its power. And that's one of the, I think, an important thing about it.
And you mentioned reverence, which is the
Starting from a new
curriculum
one.
that you developed that is sort of, we call it like the emotional gym.
So before we get into this next video, this next one's called Designer Emotional Capacity and Transitions. I purely grabbed these randomly. They're obviously part of a bigger talk. I couldn't tell you which one came first or whatever. It almost doesn't matter. I did a Google here while the end of that was playing, and I was just curious. So, two things I want to bring up. I just came across this New York Times article, but I can't read it without subscribing. But it says he's the sex cult's grandmaster who was seen like a god, and what I was trying to figure out was, did they see him as a god? How do they see this guy? Because we're not getting that here. We're getting someone who's manipulative. We're getting someone who is narcissistic. But how did they see him? So I'm just on Wikipedia right now. I'm just curious what it says about him. So I'm just going to read a few things before we go to the next video. It says, as an adult, Raniere told the story of how he read Isaac Asimov's second foundation book and credited it with inspiring his work in NXIVM, the mind control element. He was a computer programmer, very intelligent, and yeah, he does come across as very intelligent. There's no question about that. He certainly is intelligent, but he's using it in a negative way. He worked with Amway, multi-level marketing. What a surprise. And then he founded his own Consumers Byline, which we heard referenced later. A buying club that offered discounts in exchange for recruitment. So Alison Mack, I'm going to give you close up and personal if you recruit people. Interesting. Interesting. Let's see. He was a multi-level seller of vitamins later on, a pyramid scheme there. Seems to be part of a lot of pyramid schemes. And then started, Nancy Salzman, who we heard about in the Tourette's one, he met in 1998. She was a nurse and practitioner of hypnotism. And they founded ESP, a personal development company offering techniques in self-improvement. So here we have, now this is really interesting, here we have an organization promoting the scientific background, but really it's his organization that he started with her almost before the religious thing. Oh, it is the group. Oh, excuse me. Let me just read this all. This is interesting. So Raniere and Salzman founded ESP. A few years later, the program was rebranded under the name NXIVM, and he adopted the title Vanguard. A lot of it was influenced by the teachings of Ayn Rand, and then he recruited members like Sarah Brofman and Claire Brofman, and he was in Forbes magazine as the world's strangest executive coach. So this ESP is NXIVM. So he's literally talking about how great his group is, and yet this is the group which is horrible. And then you get into commodities trading and mass resignations, and there was looks like unethical practices and alleged abuse of leadership. So basically, he created an organization that may have some benefit, and then became the cult leader for it, and went off and had all sorts of things happening. You can read the Wikipedia. I'll let you do that. I'm just scrolling through very quickly before we go back. So much about... Oh, okay. So much about sexual abuses. I'm not going to read those. And then it says suspicious deaths. Okay, so in 1984, he seduced and raped a 15-year-old girl who met in a theater group. So actually, I guess he's done a little bit of theater. He raped a friend. And then she was found dead of a gunshot wound, apparent suicide. He kind of pushed it. Somebody else, a 35-year-old, was enrolled in an ESP course. And let's see. She died. Wow, another one. This older lady died of brain cancer. So there is some suspicious deaths there. And then it looks like within NXIVM there was the DOS, this group of women that we now know, Alison Mack and others, who created this little group that was horrible, with the branding and all that. I'm just trying to figure out, did they see him as God? It was certainly a master slave. It seems to me he's more of a life coach, maybe, than some guru. But certainly there's a... I don't know. I don't see any real religious stuff here, but I think what he taught was all-encompassing. It was just everything. He's teaching you how to live a better life, to get in touch with yourself, to do this, to do whatever, and look at the scientific background he has, and he is your master. And yeah, I'm not seeing what I want. So maybe it wasn't really explicitly spiritual, but certainly it was just this. Certainly he is lumped in with spiritual gurus, and maybe they did see him as God. There is something here about working with the Dalai Lama. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah, you can look up on Wikipedia yourself. It makes me not feel good. It makes me not even want to keep going on these videos. There's so much mind manipulation and brainwashing going on here, though, once you dig into it. So now we're going to go into another video called Designer Emotional Capacity and Transitions. Meaningless if you're an outsider.
And I find them to be very inseparable, the source and reverence. Like you were saying, like, okay, so the source opens up this kind of cavern of experience that you've shoved away for a long time, but it's like if you open the door to this thing and you don't know what to do with it or how to interface with it, or you don't have the strength to withstand the experience that comes back with that, then you have all this information about yourself, but you're kind of back where Robin Williams and Jeff Buckley are, like lost in the emotion of that experience.
Whereas in the source, it's hard
for a person to be deeply authentic if they're inauthentic with themselves. And people who are inauthentic with themselves, the nature of being inauthentic with yourself is that you're blind to it. Otherwise, you'd be authentic with yourself and then you'd be sort of conning yourself on top of it.
Right.
But true self-inauthenticity is blindness. It's an incompletion.
He's
But
right there.
with understanding this philosophically and opening these areas up, then what are the practices? What are the actual practical tools
Right.
that allow you to, if you will, it's almost custom design. Or you might call it designer emotional states,
Right.
designer emotional capacity, designer emotional transitions.
Yeah.
Not only how do you design them, but how do you practice them?
Right.
See, how do you become
The sad part of this is that's not really a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that, except he went off and raped women and destroyed lives. So is that the practice of what he's talking about? Is you rape women and you have a master-slave relationship with them? Is that him being authentic? You see, so this is the real problem we have, is what he's saying is nothing that's bad. There's nothing bad about this, but it's like, yeah, what happened next? And what was likely happening when they filmed this? Yeah. Actions speak louder than words.
good at being angry? There's some people that are very good at being angry. And they practice it daily. And the more they practice, the better they get.
Right.
But imagine if you could have a precise understanding of emotions
Yeah.
and the dimensions of all those emotions, and to be able to practice them and to practice the different aspects of them and practice even the experience that leads to love.
It's just incredible, because I think when we first met and I first started studying the work that you produce, and just became a student of all the different exercises that you've developed and processes to build myself, I felt like I was in university for my soul. You know what I mean? Like,
there's
it
the
wasn't.
spiritual stuff.
I've always loved education, but I've never really had a lot of formalized education. I think we kind of share in that. But this felt like education in terms of like nothing intellectually firm. It was more like I was educating like my inner light or my spirit or whatever. I don't know what to call it.
I think, well, in a way, you mentioned we share in that. No, I think you were better than I was. I had a lot of formal education. I just didn't. I abused it. I didn't. No, I did complete it. I just didn't respect it the way maybe I could have. In some ways, I got some things from it that were very good, and in some ways, I think I didn't get things I could have gotten from it. So it's more I had the opportunity and the structure, whereas you didn't have that same structure.
That's true.
So you're better
I
than
think
I
she's
was.
totally
By far.
rocking on him.
Wiser.
Okay, next one.
It's one of the things that we strive to do is help people build self-awareness, build what some people might even call a type of consciousness. Babies are not born self-aware. The theory of mind, which is interesting, when you watch how a child grows, their sense of self and having an independent mind of other people develops not only in the first few hours and weeks and months, but years of life. And what you find actually is human self-awareness continues to develop, and many, many adults are, well, there's a broad range of self-awareness. Some people that are not very self-aware at all, some people that are highly self-aware. Now understand, self-awareness and morality may have a flirtatious relationship, but they don't even go hand in hand. You have people who are not self-aware at all, who are just really pure innocent gems, and you have people who are highly self-aware that aren't very, very nice. So morality and the understanding of compassion and building compassion is another dimension that we strive to build. So we like to build compassionate self-awareness in people that want that. And there's some people who say, no, I don't want that. That's great, because it's not something that we want to foist upon people. But the advantages of being self-aware and the advantages of being more compassionate seem, for the most part, to outweigh any reluctance to go in that direction.
I would agree. I mean, as I've been doing this work for the past 6 years, that's been my experience. I mean, as you build more self-awareness slowly, life becomes better, life becomes richer, and specifically in the case with Tourette's, I've been able to become less reactive to my body, and I've been able to take more control in that way, which is incredible.
Well, thank you. I mean, well, you participate in it. So, as the thing grows, it's certainly grown far beyond what I initially conceived. And it's really a study for me and an ongoing learning process to grow this body of knowledge.
Wow, I don't know what to say, because that was actually a fairly decent mind trip. That was actually fairly decent. The guy is intelligent and he's insightful. I mean, I couldn't really argue with anything he was just saying, which makes me just feel weird, because he's a monster and he did horrible things and he ruined lives, and it feels like he would have just ruined more lives if he could have, but he kind of kept it a little close to home. He's certainly someone who takes advantage of people and manipulates, and these are heavily manipulated, conversations. And Alison Mack's just totally wanting to bang him, basically. But yeah, I can totally see why someone would be drawn into him. He has this very sort of appealing thing. Oh, there was something I wanted to say earlier and I didn't. I wanted to talk about Santosha Tantra, who I did an earlier video of, and actually Mother Mira, to another reaction video of. And you should watch both of them. I think those are the real deal. He is not an enlightened being, I don't think. Smart, yes. But I don't think anyone becomes a manipulative cult leader who is dumb. I think it's the smart people who go to them. And there's actually studies that show smart people are more lured into cults. Matter of fact, it's not dummies with one tooth. I don't know. No, it's smart folks, because they're looking to break the system, to get out of the system, to find something bigger. And people who just like are, I put all my money in under my pillow where it's safe with my shotgun. You know what I mean? They're not the ones who go to cults, because they're not looking to break the system. So we're dealing with very intelligent people here. Anyone who says cult members are stupid doesn't really understand cults. Because you don't go into a cult to follow the status quo or to have an easy life. You go into a cult to break all of that, to not have it easy, to discuss issues which are controversial. Anyways, Santosha Tantra, Mother Mira, I think they are aware beings. When you listen to them talk, they had a range of emotions. Santosha Tantra is actually laughing, and she's saying things in an interesting way, and her pace changes. And Mother Mira, too, at times you could be like, okay, what are you asking me about? What is this? But you notice how Keith talks? Everything is sort of within the same range of vocalizing. The way he talks, even when he's sort of grasping for words, it's all very slick. And he never raises his voice too high or lowers it too much. He never goes too fast or too slow. Every video we have seen, even the early ones, have him talking in this very particular way that never really changes. And it's a very alluring way of talking, where he feels, or he makes it feel like he's your friend and he's really listening to you. But nobody talks exactly the same in all the videos, except for the one where he's getting upset at the woman. But even then, as the President of the United States, he was explaining things in a very articulated manner. And that's very interesting, because it's not right. I pinpointed this when I was watching the John DeRuiter video, how John has this particular way of presenting himself and talking, and you could kind of tell like he'd be going in and out of character during an interview. And that should be a dead giveaway when every single thing you see with someone is in a particular way. As it is, I'm having trouble doing this. I'm having trouble faking it right now because I'm all over the place. When I speak, I get excited, I get angry, I'm very open here. And when you watch the Santosha Tantra video, she's laughing. And I know, like, as a performer, former actor, my characters were all over the place. If I was doing one thing all the time, either I had a character who only had one line and there was nothing happening in the scene, like a cop just standing there, or I wasn't acting. Because the thing about acting was you wanted to be all over the place, because being all over the place is natural. Having emotions here and there are natural. We all go up and down. We don't talk the same. But the fact that Keith talks the same should be a dead giveaway that this guy is questionable. But let's keep going. Actually, no, I want to see. We're on it. How many more videos do we have here? So we're on advantages of compassionate self-awareness, and then so last three, and we'll go and watch them. We're almost there.
It's one of the things that
short.
we strive to do is help people build self-awareness, build what some people might even call a type of consciousness.
That totally is what he's doing. And all the videos we've seen, self-awareness, even if he's not saying it directly, in the earlier videos too, without Alison and this guy, self-awareness is a theme there. So this is sort of his niche, I think, where he's selling self-awareness in a way you've never had it before. And yeah, I could see why some people might find him very interesting. I hate saying that. But no cult leader becomes famous without something that is attractive.
Babies are not born self-aware. The theory of mind, which is interesting, when you watch how a child grows, their sense of self and having an independent mind of other people develops not only in the first few hours and weeks and months, but years of life. And what you find actually is human self-awareness continues to develop, and many, many adults are, there's a broad range of self-awareness. Some people that are not very self-aware at all, some people that are highly self-aware. Now understand, self-awareness and morality may have a flirtatious relationship, but they don't even go hand in hand. You have people who are not self-aware at all, who are just really pure innocent.
Yeah, this is the one we just watched. Sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention to the titles. So you know what we'll do? We'll go right to that ending. Obviously, okay, I stopped it at the end. My fault. And we'll just go to the next video. So 2 more.
Body of knowledge.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so the first question I wanted to ask is something. Thank you.
Have your
Thank
list.
you, by the way. I do
You
have
have
my
your list of
Thank you
questions.
so
Oh
much.
my.
It was funny when I sat down yesterday to write out my questions. I was like, wow, I have a lot of questions for you. Even though I've been your student for years and I get to spend all this time with you, I feel like there's always such a wealth that I can.
But when you have the opportunity to put a bright light on me and just question,
Yeah, exactly.
what the hey?
I have to take advantage. So the first question I came up with is something that sort of, it seems like it's kind of a trend right now. Like Elizabeth Gilbert started it before with the TED Talk about creativity, and then there's like all these books and all these processes of like, what is creativity? And it's this gift from the gods. And I know for myself, there are moments in time when I feel like creatively abound. And then there are other times when I just feel like the most boring person on the planet. I can't come up with anything. And I was just wondering if you could explain sort of your take on the nature of creativity and if there's a process of
I could say a bunch of
creating
things that are just not creating creativity.
Creating creativity,
There's a creative
yeah. Or
act,
is it like a muscle that you
or
can
a scientific act.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I normally speak of science and creativity as sort of being somewhat opposite, but they're not really. I mean, inherent in science is this notion that we can have free will, and there's even in science things like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle that talks about our limits on how we can observe things and stuff like that. But, a point is, if we have something that we can predict, it becomes not creative at all. It has no free will, and it's science. And if it seems to have free will,
we see it as things, parts of it that are not predictable and thereby creative. It creates. It is the thing that comes from it is not a function of that which comes before in any way that we can predict. It's as if this thing birthed something totally anew and unpredictable. If it's predictable, it's not creative.
Right.
So, of course, we as humans feel we have free will, and that's sort of interesting, but it doesn't mean we do. It just means we can't see our own programming enough to say that we're just robots. You know, if it ever comes about that we find that we are truly just robots, automata of sorts, I think all creativity is out the window then.
Totally, because then it's just pre-programmed into you.
Yeah, so that which makes us not a scientific, predictable thing is creativity. Now, most people take creativity and, you know, unfortunately, creativity in itself has a more rigorous or, I would say, pure aspect. And then, as with many things, and we as humans love to do this, use it as an excuse. You know, there's a saying that talent, it's by Schopenhauer, talent hits the target no one else can see. No one else can hit. And genius hits the target no one else can see. So whenever I hit my volleyball, I serve my volleyball off of the court completely, it's just genius. That's using something as an excuse. You know, the same thing with creativity. You know, someone comes up with something that has no rhyme or reason. It's creative. And somehow, a lot of times that imparts a type of virtue to it. You know, so for example, if someone's just being lazy, some people think it's creative.
Right.
There's a lot of things like that. But I would say in its good sense, creativity is an expression of the human spirit. If we see ourselves as not robots, and we have this somehow innate animus, this portion of us, this, what you might say, metaphysical, this soul, creativity has that as its source. Now, some people might say, oh, well, all right, creativity comes through. Well, maybe it comes through that. Maybe it's the window. But all the other predictable parts of the universe operate much like a machine, and then you have this creative animus. It is true that people are sort of an intersection between what you might call the explainable science and the never explainable mysticism. The whole notion of qualia, you know, the fact that I see something that has redness, but redness is something that's unexplainable, really unmeasurable. We can measure red. Both of us consistently see something as red. We can create a machine that detects red. But the redness in red is something that, as of now, is very personal to us. Our whole experience of the universe, whether it's Beethoven or the stars or redness, is personal to us and right now stands behind an impenetrable veil, and is thereby a type of mysticism. So are humans completely programmable, predictable, at least right now by human expression and thinking? No, we can't explain ourselves like machines. We can't write the equations of our behavior yet. And creativity is that which we can't explain. Now, of course, we like to think of creativity in a functional sense. Creativity as applied to the arts. But one could say that the essence of creativity is biopoiesis, which is the creation of life. Here we have this inanimate planet. We have all these different chemical sort of things going on, this environment, maybe even creating things like amino acids. And then somewhere along the line, there's this spark, a flash, whatever it was. And now there's this thing that we call life that we can't quite explain, except it has certain characteristics. It holds itself out against physics. You know, life maintains itself in a certain way that non-life doesn't. And of course, as we get more advanced in science, we see a number of things that seem to straddle this boundary. We can't tell if they're alive or not. But the robust experience of life. It's this thing that goes of its own accord. And in the human body, when life leaves the human body, it seems now to just decay into just the physics of the universe, this chemicals and mass, all these different things that just, and the life is gone. Mm-hmm. So creativity seems to sprout up out of nowhere. Because if it sprouted from somewhere, if we could write an equation where it came from, then it would be definable. Right. So you might have to say that creativity thereby sort of pervades the universe. It goes through it and is there inherent somehow in it. Mm-hmm. So you might say that between chaos and structure, between science and creativity, we have this structure that we experience as the universe. And when we are being creative, hopefully we tap into that force unexplainable by science, mm-hmm. as opposed to being in the force that's very explainable by science, inertia, and just calling that our creativity because we're lazy.
So I just had this interesting thought about him. So usually when we look at cult leaders or religious leaders, there's some background in religion that they have. They studied with this person, they went to India, they did this, they had that revelation. If he ever had any of these revelations or called himself a god or thought he was enlightened, I don't see it here. I didn't see it on Wikipedia, but I don't know what he said behind closed doors. Obviously many things. We do know, though, or from the New York Times headline, that they sort of saw him like this, so there was some spiritual aspect. And, and he talks about metaphysics kind of here without really going into it. But I was kind of thinking, so we have these gurus who have a background in religion. Well, what if we had a scientist who was a huge narcissist and became a guru? I think that's what we have. We have here a very smart, well-read, intelligent guy who somehow has this scientific background of some science of some sort and became a guru. So it's more than just God and realization, it's knowing ourself, which anyone should want to know, even if you're not spiritual. The whole point of life is really to know yourself, really, kind of, sort of, or to work with yourself, whether you believe in God or not. I'm sure that's what your life is aiming for, is you. So, and your needs. So it's kind of interesting to see him. He kind of reminds me of, I forget which guru. Is it Mukundananda? Swami Mukundananda? I may have mispronounced his name. Big smile, really happy guy, Indian, who was an engineer or something and then had a revelation and now has become a guru. So I kind of would think of him. So here's a guy who may or may not have a religious background, but had a real job and was doing things. But he went into a direction where he's very traditional Hindu. He has his own Bhagavad Gita that he's put out in prose. He's done other things. At some point I will do a reaction video to him, but I kind of like the guy, so it might be a bit. There's others I want to explore who I don't know, and I know him. But here we have him going in a different direction where he becomes very religious, very hardcore. But yet we have Keith who became, I don't know, it's an interesting, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, for lack of anything else, Keith is an interesting character study. And we're not really getting a good view of him in these videos because Alison's not going to ask him a question about something that she's going to get a horrible answer to. She's going to ask about things that they've talked about, whatever. They have a very close relationship, we know. So it's totally biased. It's not a true revealing of him. But you can see how someone might be manipulated because what he says is pretty decent. It's not necessarily spiritual, so someone like me may not gravitate to him. But for folks, and I know many of them who aren't spiritual, they just want to be lifted up, they might gravitate to him. So it's very interesting. Yeah, one more video.
I mean, that kind of leads me to my next question, which has to do with authenticity. because then it seems more like
I chose this one deliberately because we know how inauthentic he is as a teacher, given all the stuff he did. Unless he is authentically a monster.
creativity comes from a place of just originality or like soulfulness, if you're looking at it in a positive light.
You know, authenticity and creativity are an interesting match. We don't like to think of ourselves as robots. And if you are coming off as robotic, most people say that's somehow inauthentic. There has to be an inauthenticity to that. Because we're not robots. So what does it mean to be authentic? When someone's authentic, you feel them. You have this feeling of a soul there.
Right.
Not a robot, not some pre-programmed, contrived face or something along those lines. It just seems to come naturally from their experience of existing on this planet. From the time they are conceived and they become a child and grow and all of this thing, they gather this unique impression of existence. And authenticity somehow is a manifestation of all of that. And it also relates to wisdom. I always say wisdom is taking your life experience and being able to apply it in a decision. It's a global way of acting as opposed to a narrow way where, I feel like doing this. I'm not thinking of anything that ever happened to me. No lessons have ever been learned, and I'm just going to go and do this thing. Likewise, authenticity has no additional layers of artifice, no trying to be something that you think you should be. It's just a pure state of being. So one would say authenticity is being as you are and expressing as you are, at least to some degree. And as you are is, of course, the sum of your whole past. So when someone's being authentic, you get the feeling that not only that there's a person there in the moment, but somehow you reach into their very essence and you meet a unique individual.
I don't know why, that makes me want to cry. It's beautiful.
Well,
sorry.
I think these are all things that we strive for. We strive as a...
I think he's right. When you meet someone authentic, you know it and you feel it, and we want that. And some of us want to be authentic. Not everybody. Not everyone wants to be authentic. Believe it or not. So I hear what he's saying, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, you could... I don't know how to put up an argument against that. I don't even know how to criticize that, or who doesn't want to be authentic? But that's his selling point, because I think he's selling the idea that you're not self-aware, you're not authentic, but if you come to me, I will teach you how to get in touch with yourself. I think that was what he did, and I think that's what Alison was telling people. Look, I can make you a better actress or actor. I can do this for you, and we can do this. If you come with me and meet my teacher, he will give you ways of getting in touch with all these aspects to yourself, the holistic thing, and you'll be better in a million ways. You'll be a better performer. You'll be more creative. You'll be more authentic. That's what I'm feeling is what he's doing here. He's selling us someone who's going to make our lives explode in all the ways that everyone like myself who's an artist wants our life to be. We want to be authentic. We want to be creative. We want to do all these things, and that's what he's selling, and it's a solid sell. But again, look at what he did. Look at what happened to these women. And I guess the men probably got the best of it because he didn't bring them into the inner circle because he's not gay or bi. And so the men were on the outside and probably got the best teachings, which is messed up. Because these teachings are actually pretty decent. If I didn't know this guy and I just heard this video and I never knew what happened and nothing happened, he's still out there teaching, I'd want to buy the book that he's written, if he wrote one. I don't know if he wrote one. I want to learn more about this authentic self. I totally would. I'm totally allured by it. So now I totally understand what Allison and others would see in him. I'm being sort of extra on the edge looking for stuff though. And I don't think most people are doing this. I don't think most people are going to comment on the way he talks. I'm just tuning into that right now and I have all this hindsight. But if you weren't tuned into that, you didn't think he was a bad guy. Look, I can see it. I can see it. There's some gurus I've called out immediately on this channel, in these reaction videos, elsewhere, who I've like immediately, I just look at this person, I'm like, yeah, not good. But seeing this is so good, and the questions are so great, and his answers, though, they're they're good. Though I think he's probably talked about these issues before, so none of this is completely off the cuff, like New Earth, okay, yeah. No, this feels like stuff that he's probably talked about a little bit. And who knows what has been edited out of this, or how much of this conversation. I don't know. Maybe it's all legit. You never know. But it's really hard to say anything bad here, and I hate that because he is not a good guy. But it's a learning experience. This one has been an interesting reaction video. I thought I was just going to hear stuff out of his mouth and go, ugh. But he sounds better than John DeRuiter. But he's done worse than John DeRuiter. And I'm not. And for John, I was just like, this is gibberish. But what's coming out of this voice of Keith is not really gibberish. It's really not. It's also not spirituality. It's something else, and that's just weird. I don't know. Yeah. Let's keep watching. We only got minute left.
As individuals, we strive to break through a type of existential isolation. We want to touch someone. We want to know that other people have souls. We want to experience this. We want to experience connection, things like what we call love, and compassion, and even something like, as I said, connection or rapport. Some people call it an energy or whatever. But
if you can critique what he's saying, like that last little bit, if you can say, no, people don't want to do that, you're not listening to him. And you're not in touch, because I know I want connection. Don't we all want connection, and we want to experience things? Isn't that what all of us who are self-aware and not materialists want? We want something. So if you say, oh, well, this guy's an animal and everything he says is horrible, you're not listening, or you're not self-aware, because what he said is actually legitimate. And I've heard this said by other people too. Freud probably said it, legitimate, decent, normal humans have said we want connection. So if you judge him, you're not listening to him. But listening to him, you agree with him, but the fact is he's a horrible person, so you're agreeing with someone who's horrible, and I am now in an existential crisis. I am now in an existential crisis.
Now we're not talking to
a
machine, we're talking to another human. And even if that human is a machine, somehow we imbue it with, we even ask the question, is this thing alive? Is this thing thinking?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That was so weird. But the first two videos on this list, these two that we watched, are a very different person than the rest of this. Very, very different. And I wish I could have found more old videos, because I think those might be more authentic. They were certainly a narcissist and whatever, and a cult leader. These other videos have not been. So these are definitely, there's two sides to the story here. And that's what makes this an interesting study in character, to see very two different people almost. I'm rearranging the house. Gonna go back for some closing thoughts here. Oh, sorry, this always happens. Let's get rid of my introduction. I don't know what to say. I thought I was going to hear some of the nastiest stuff I could imagine. I thought I was also going to hear a lot of religious stuff. No, I didn't. None of the above. I heard some very decent stuff. I did hear one very cringeworthy video, so I'm ignoring that for the second. But I heard a lot of really interesting stuff. That's not really so wrong. By a master narcissist and manipulator. I just joked about having an existential crisis night now, but I am in this weird place of, I agree with Hitler. It's one of those. Oh, Stalin, I agree with Stalin. And then you find out what Stalin did. You know, all those people during the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany who thought they were doing right and then only discover afterwards what they did. Well, that's what I feel like. But it was opposite. Like, I knew what Stalin did, and now I found myself agreeing and stuff, or I know what Hitler did, and now, you know, it's that weird... what's the word for it? I can't remember. But it's this weird state of mind. It's like I'm having two things going on at once, two emotional reactions that don't want to go together, and they are, and they shouldn't, and it's just very weird. Now, that was very educational. Now I can say I've watched some videos with Keith. I think I've gotten a firm case on him. And that's why I do this channel, to learn. Maybe you have had a completely different reaction. Very viable. Yeah, I would be interested in your thoughts down below. Anyways, this was very interesting to do for my 100th episode. Very interesting. Wow, I don't know why I've never watched his talks before. That was very, very interesting. I'm not putting him in my book of great gurus who we should all be following, like Ramana Maharshi, who's in it. Figurative book. But, and I think, well, there was a lot going on there under the surface, but that was very interesting. You know, these bad gurus, they often have something good they say, and there's like an essence of goodness and light and truth, and then underneath is truck. And a lot of it's common sense. A lot of what he said really is common sense, but he made it sound like you were hearing something special, like very special, insider information that nobody is having. But maybe we do. Anyways, that was fun. It's a long 2 hours for sitting here, so I have to say thank you for hanging out with me. Yeah, wow. Just, you never know. That's why I'm kind of enjoying these reaction videos, and I hope you are too. I know this was going into, this was probably going to be controversial for some of you, but I hope this has been educational for all of you. It's been educational for me. I won't tell you who's coming next. We're going to be doing lots more of these videos because I'm really enjoying them, and they're quite an interesting. It's quite interesting. Yeah. Wow. Well, wherever Alison Mack is now, I hope her life is better. And those who were destroyed by him, I hope their life is better. And I really have no issues of him being in jail, rotting away. He did horrible, horrible, horrible things. And should be in jail for life. And that's fine. But you can see how people would, be drawn in. That's the funny thing is, I could play someone like that, and we could all be like, yes, this man's amazing, and then I could play something by a truly great person, and you're like, yeah, I don't get it. It's funny how that works. And maybe I should confess that maybe I related the things he was saying because I consider myself an artist. Obviously, you see my bass behind me, and I'm also a writer, and so I'm creative, and I'm always being creative, and this show is actually me attempting to be creative. So maybe I can relate to him in ways that others can't be, plus being a former actor and, believe it or not, a writer of plays, and only 2 have been performed sorry, 3 have been performed. I've also directed off Broadway, and I've done technical work, so I've done all that, so I can relate to Allison on some level, even though I've never done TV or movies. It's always been my dream to do like one sci-fi movie or a horror movie, just so I can be on this cool spaceship, or like be with all these horror special effects because they're so cool. But that's probably never going to happen unless someone calls me up. So I can kind of relate, And if I did that, I want to be authentic in that moment, so I can totally relate. And I don't know what that says about me, or what it says about him, or what it says about the mind game and the manipulation that he had going on, or his PR, or whatever. I don't know. I have no answers. Instead, I'm just going to wrap this up and say thank you for being with me for this 2 hours plus. I hope you found this interesting. If you like what I do, please subscribe, and you also can see this channel on other venues other than YouTube, and you can support me by buying a book of mine or sending money, and gifts are actually welcome. I say it all the time. If you'd like to support me, you don't have to buy something from my website. You may not be interested in anything I've written. People don't know. I don't have Patreon. I don't do that because I don't know what offers to give. I only have so much time to make videos anyways. But maybe you have a book that you'd like to share with me. Buy the book on Amazon, and my address is on my website. Give something to me if you like what I do. If you like my work, that's a way of supporting me. I'm not asking for anything else. Or just subscribe, just comment, just do that. So, I feel sick though asking for your support after watching him who asked for support, but I'm not trying to ruin your life. I'm just trying to give and give more. Yeah, anyways. That was weird. Okay, good time to go before I mess my mind up anymore. So thank you for joining me. Jai Shri Krishna. Namaste.